Go ahead and get started. Please find a seat.
This is the right time, dude. 8:30. Any earlier is
Yeah. All right, let's find our seats, please, so we get started. We got a fun day. Mikey's got to get on the golf course. We got places to be. Oh, thank you. All right, good morning. You want to kill the music, Gavin? All right, almost there. Oh, we're getting close. Here we go. That's you, Mr. Seth Ludwig. I'm looking at you. Thanks, bud. All right, good morning, guys. Thank you guys so much for being here. My name is John Standring. I get to be the president of the Coastal Housing Coalition. It sure is nice seeing how far this conference has come. I'm not going to bore you guys with a bunch of background of where it used to be, but if you guys have been coming to this for a long time, it's really nice to see so many familiar faces and new faces. We have a really engaging program for you guys today. I think you guys are really going to like our keynote, and then we have 2 workshops. I first want to thank the board of directors. So if you're on the board of directors, and I will call you out if you don't stand up, but please stand up if you are on the board of directors. And I would like us to be very awkward and give everybody a round of applause. Krista, stand up. Laura Bernard, Krista Pleiser, Barry. Where's Mr. Chris Gein with Brownstein? Chris. There he is. And Tony Tomasio with RRM. You guys are great. I mean, you guys, honestly, your expertise and everything you guys do really make my job a lot easier. I'm not going to bore you with some long message about what I want you to get out of today, but I'm going to tell you guys, we're so far into the housing debate and conflict and resolution, whatever you want to call it. Have an open mind today. I think I said the same thing to you last year. We're past the part of not being able to do anything, so I think starting to have some real solutions is going to be what I would say is our best outcome. So I'm going to hand it over to our executive director, Craig Minus. He's going to kind of walk through the program, and then I'll get to introduce our keynote.
Thank you, John. Good morning to you all. All right. Like John said, we're absolutely thrilled to have you here today. My name's Craig Minus. I'm the owner and operator of CAM Land Use and Development. Thank you out there. I also serve as the executive director for the Coastal Housing Coalition. I'm lucky today because I get to talk to you about 3 things near and dear to my heart. First off, it's this conference. It's so nice to see all of you, new faces, old faces. As a nonprofit, this is what the Coastal Housing Coalition does. Look around. We advance housing education. We build strong coalitions, and we collaboratively work to create solutions to help our workforce live and work in the same community. Be proud that you're part of that today. Clap, clap. All right, just some housekeeping. Today's schedule and content is in our electronic program, If you haven't downloaded the QR code, please do that. We'll utilize this room for all of our content today, so get comfy, enjoy. The coffee station will keep flowing, I think, throughout the morning, so please help yourself to that. Restrooms are in the back, men's and women's. We'll provide 2 breaks, plenty of time to network, visit 3C Ren out here and some of our vendor booths and get to know each other. We're pleased to offer APA and AIA credits, so that QR or that location to log into those are in our program. Lastly, I wanted to thank Gavin Roy Productions for the AV and Crush Cakes for the wonderful breakfast this morning. The second important item I want to talk about is our sponsors. Again, as a nonprofit, our ability to do our important work is due to your support. You'll see numerous sponsor organizations in our production today, and when you're networking with a sponsor, colleague, or friend, go ahead and pat them on the back, because today's event could not happen without them. We appreciate each and every one of you. In particular, 4 have gone above today to help our organization advance. The Santa Barbara Association of Realtors. Year after year, they continually step up for this conference. Throughout the year, we're consistently working alongside their leadership to refine and improve the ever-changing regional housing policies. We truly enjoy this community partnership with such a professional organization. 1 of 4. Solomon Hills. Solomon Hills. This inspiring 4,000 home community is designed to meet North Santa Barbara County's urgent housing need with an integrated plan that brings together homes, a work campus, daily living services throughout walkable and bikeable neighborhoods. Solomon Hills represents a real opportunity for our region. The CHC will continue to help shape the vision, and we hope that you take the time to learn more about Solomon Hills as they move through the county's approval process. Yardy Systems. They embody the slogan, do the right thing even when no one is looking. We'll hear more from them today about their philanthropic endeavors, one of which is their annual support to our organization. We congratulate Anat Yardy, who was honored last week at the Goleta Finest Lifetime Achievement Award. Lastly, Brownstein Farber Hyatt Schreck. We really appreciate Brownstein's support they've provided this year. We brought them on as pro bono counsel, and they've really taken our advocacy efforts to the next level. In particular, I wanted to thank Matt Carlson and Cody Sargent for their tremendous work. Lastly, let me say a few words about the Coastal Housing Coalition. 2025 has been an impactful year for us, and let me tell you, this year our board of directors brought it. We worked alongside many of you in this room in the scoping, development, and refinement of programs, projects, and ordinances related to housing. Our contributions in policy and project advocacy are often done behind the scenes, but know that we'll continually bring it when it comes to providing housing obtainable to our workforce. We're proud of our recent CHC social media endeavors and our website redesign. A big shout out to Sarah Standering for that. Our website will in part house interactive information related to this conference and other educational events. The website will also host all of our public positions and research regarding project and policy advocacy. Lastly, we're proud to be a recent grant recipient from the City of Goleta, the Santa Barbara Foundation, and Cox Charity Employee Grant Advisory Committee. I hope you enjoyed today's program. I'll welcome John back up to introduce our keynote.
Thank you, Craig. So when we were talking about this conference, it's always an interesting time because at a board meeting we have, all right, who's going to be the conference chair? And I think this is my 3rd time doing it, but everyone's sitting around the board table and they go, no hands are raised, like, all right, I'll do it. And I wanted to do it this year because I was able to meet somebody in the last year that I'm not going to say has completely changed my life, but it's definitely helped me understand perspective on a lot of the things, all things housing. Mikey Taylor, when I first met him, happened to be on the golf course and got to spend a lot of time with him, but in getting to know him more and more, this is an individual that I hope today that the city of Santa Barbara, the county of Santa Barbara, and our region really can listen to. This is a man who wears so many hats and wears them very well. I'm not going to bore you with all the acclimates that he's gone through, but just to kind of highlight, the guy was doing, I don't want to say misty flips, kick flips out of big bowls in the X Games as a pro skateboarder. He then went on to start a very successful St. Augustine Beer Company, and now runs Commune Capital. Just the other day, he also now is also the mayor of Thousand Oaks. So I really hope that you guys enjoy this. Mikey is somebody that I really admire and somebody that I am glad to call a friend. So please listen to him. He's going to be here to engage with you guys, and I'm looking forward to what he has to say. So with all that, Mikey Taylor.
Can everybody hear me okay? All right, so, I got double going. Let's get rid of this. Hang on 1 second. You guys mind grabbing that? So it seems that every time I get ready to speak somewhere, either my son or my daughter wakes up in the middle of the night, I wake up and I cannot go back to sleep. So this morning at about 4 o'clock, my 5-year-old son climbed into bed, and I woke up, looked at the clock, and went, nope, this is when I'm waking up. So hopefully I had enough caffeine to keep me, or stop me from being boring and not delivering what hopefully is an important message. And I'm going to attempt to take everything I learned leading up to this point, more on the private side, and everything I've experienced over the last 3 years working with the city, and to try to create what I think is the correct outlook on how we navigate through this housing crisis. Number one, I just want to acknowledge something. Only in America can a pro skateboarder be sitting up here speaking to attorneys, land use planners, developers about something like CEQA and yield on cost. I think we live in the most special place. So thank you for allowing me to be up here. The last 20 years for me, in 60 seconds. I started off as a pro skateboarder. I picked up a skateboard. I have an obsessive personality. I'm ultra competitive, and that turned into a 14-year career, which was absolutely amazing. The challenge that I faced is I picked a career that had a shelf life. So I had to figure out what was next. What was next for me is building my first business, which was called St. Archer. It was a production craft brewery down in San Diego. And we sold that company to Miller Coors in 2015. And then from there, I started my next business, which I currently operate today. It's called Commune Capital. We're a private equity real estate firm. We focus on multifamily apartments. We focus on self-storage. For our multifamily, it's all Southern California. So I understand the challenges of navigating through the regulation in our state to have to put housing online. On the self-storage side, I own 2 assets here. We actually own the largest self-storage facility in Ventura County, but the majority of our assets are actually outside of the state. And then I decided to get involved with City Council in 2022. At that time, my wife was pregnant with our 4th. So I am a husband and father of 4. At that time, it was 3. And my business in 2022 was going through a pretty big growth moment. So it was very demanding. And I had this idea that maybe I should get involved on the city level, mainly because we decided to raise our kids here, and we were starting to see some of these challenges arise. And my idea was, I don't want anything put on the table that would even make me question leaving our city. This is where I'm born and raised. I love where I live. But I didn't know how I was going to get my wife to say yes to this, right? She was 6 months pregnant. And so when presenting it to her, I took a little bit of a different approach. Normally, when I have an idea, I try to sell my wife, right? I paint the vision. I try to get rid of all the pushback first, and then ultimately try to have a position where I feel like she has to say yes. With this one, I knew I couldn't do that. So I brought it up to her like this. Babe, I'm thinking about running for city council. I know the timing is insane. And so I'm going to allow you to have full control over this one. I won't argue the point positive or negative. You say yes, I'm going to go for it. You say no, I'm not going to argue it. We'll be done with it. You won't see any bit of my mood change. And she goes, yeah, the timing, this is going to be interesting. But she looked and said, you're right in the fact that we're raising our kids here. I do think you have a skill set that our community can hopefully benefit from. So let's go for it. And so 22 was wild. I ran my first campaign. I thought entrepreneurship was crazy. Running a campaign. Is there any elected officials in the room right now? Yeah, you know. It's like entrepreneurship on high octane. It is the craziest thing. We often say when we're building businesses, it's like building the boat when you're already off to sea. This one's like an airplane. It's like being in the air, having to assemble the jet to take off. And that was a fun experience, but I learned a lot because up until that point, I always sat on the private side of working with the city, trying to navigate through what I thought was a lot of challenge to get an asset built. Now I'm over on the city side, on the other side of the dais, talking to developers, and I'm in a position where I have to create policy to try to solve this. So I'm gonna attempt to take what I learned all the way from skateboarding to today to try to create this framework of how I think we can benefit the city. You might ask, what the heck did you learn from skateboarding that applies to city council? Fascinating enough, I learned something there. Now, if you would have saw me about 10, 12 years ago, I would skate off stairs and I would skate on handrails. So you might have seen a clip, considering you guys watched skateboarding 15 years ago, of me going down a 20, 25 stair handrail. And most people that don't understand skateboarding would see that and go, this guy is crazy, he's out of his mind, he doesn't understand risk, and he has no, let me think of the best way to say this, he does not value his body at all. But what most people don't see is the 20,000 plus hours put in to master my craft. That's number one. Number two, when we're doing something dangerous, we're doing the same exercise that we all do in our daily life, which is assess risk and return. We do that daily. I crossed the street, I parked on the other side. Any cars? No. Low risk, I got this, boom, ran across, right? We do this with investing. We do this with relationships. With skateboarding, when I was gonna jump on a handrail, I was assessing the risk and assessing the return. What do I get out of doing this trick? What do I lose if I mess up? And before I try it, I'm looking at plan B and plan C. What's my exit route? And so we would do things like this. 20 stair handrail. I have to get on the handrail. I have to go down 8 stairs before I can jump and make it to the flat. And when I make it to the flat, if I mess up, I've got to roll and then I could be okay. So you're constantly finding your opportunity to bail out. Moving into business, I experienced the same thing, but on the other side. I had to raise money for my company. I didn't have enough money to do it. And so I had to go out with 2 partners. We had 0 experience with business. I never started a business before. I also started a business in the craft beer industry. Myself and my 2 partners knew nothing about beer. So do you think that was an easy capital raise or a hard capital raise? It was tough because the investors that were underwriting the risk and return profile for us viewed it as very high risk. But the risk and the reward have to match. We had the opportunity for a high return. Now, the investors that believed in us ended up investing. We became one of the fastest growing breweries in California. Our idea was right. The 3 of us, where we lacked experience, what we had was this anything is possible mentality. All 3 of us were competitive. We like to win. Most importantly, we hate to lose. So I think that's what people were investing in. They were investing in that. The idea was right. The timing was right. We had some things work out in our favor. And in 2015, we had Anheuser, we had Miller Coors, we had Pabst, we had all of the biggest companies in the beer space in a bidding war to buy our brand. And what the investors experienced is high risk, very, 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 very high return. So we were in a position where we were able to bless the investors that believed in us. Then I moved into a totally different risk profile. I started building real estate. And something interesting happened. I had to bring that out to investors, and the investors were underwriting the risk of the deal, and then again, they were underwriting the risk of the operators. I then had to go and underwrite the risk of the community. What does the city council look like? Is the city council made up of activists? Is it made up of ideology? Is it made up of pragmatism? And how do they work together when they have an issue? Do they work well? Are they a challenge? All those factors are put onto how we navigate through investing in a community. Is this a high-risk community? And do we run the risk of losing money through the entitlement phase? Or is this a community that has a long-term vision and has the correct partnership pairing for us? So all of those things are coming into alignment. Now on city council, it's very interesting because I find myself in a unique position. If you look at the housing issue, the one thing that we can all agree on is there's a housing crisis. Where we're split, and what I would say the 2 camps are, You have one camp that is the government's here to save it. The government will solve this problem. You have the other camp, it's the free market capitalists. The market will solve everything. The challenge is they're actually both wrong. In this dynamic, both have to perfectly pair together because you're not able to build real estate without city involvement. That could get wild, right? I'm a capitalist through and through. There is a challenge with a full-blown free market because capitalism is competitive. So you have to have rules that you follow, and then you compete with one another, and hopefully that competition creates innovation and leaves the end user with the best result. That's what we hope for, right? So how do we navigate through this dynamic of two different solutions to the same issue? Right now, we saw an interesting thing happen in New York. We have a new mayor, and the new mayor, Zoran Mandami, nailed the pain point, affordability, right? That message is going to be what we all hear, definitely in the next election cycle. We're most likely going to hear it over the next few years because this is a problem that's not going to be solved quick, right? So he nailed the problem. His solution, I actually don't think is the correct solution. I think it's a pairing. So his solution is government getting involved, rent freezes, government helping those that are struggling, and the long-term effect is the thing that we have to be careful of, right? We cannot create a short-term fix that puts ourselves in a position with a disruptive long-term gain. And so the risk that we run is if you de-incentivize investors, investors won't build. If investors don't build, is any housing added to the market? No, if no housing is ever added to the market, we're stuck in the same position we're in today. But you have to have some type of government involvement. So what is the correct pairing? Right now in every city, we have a discussion around inclusionary policy. How much affordability per unit has to be built, and then where does market rate land? And this is something our city is navigating through. This is something that every single city is trying to figure out. Where is that correct balance? So on my city council, I have a great city council, but we're split. We have some that sit on the side of we need more affordable housing. The thing that I think is really important for us all to note is what does affordable housing mean? And for us in this room, we understand what it means. The total community has different definitions of what it is. When you say affordable housing, what I think the masses here is real estate as a whole is too expensive. We can't afford this. What the heck is going on? What affordability really means in this room is what percentage is subsidized and what percentage has rent caps and who can qualify for it. So I think it's important for us, especially if we're the ones that are out here trying to create policy, trying to build it, and then for the elected officials, how do you communicate it? The reality is it's nuanced. And in political speak, most stay away from the nuance. You try to create a very simple message. Usually that's tied to emotion because emotion creates action. And that incentive actually can get us in trouble. So I think as elected officials, we've got to try to find the right way to resonate with the audience, but also not leave out all the key information that's needed to actually solve this problem. Does that make sense? Everybody on board there? Okay, so my city of Thousand Oaks, when we were doing our inclusionary policy, I have two council members, and I want to start by saying this. Even though we have different views, my city council works very, very well together. And most importantly, when we're in a council meeting on the dais, we attempt to do a very good job to not look like we are children bickering with one another. We want to have good conversation. If we disagree, we try to do it in a respectful way. But I have two council members that are they're very passionate about the pain point. They want to solve affordability, but their view is we need more affordability, more affordable housing units per development. And so when we're trying to land on the right percentage, they wanted more. So let's use 20% as the threshold. We want 20% for all new development to be affordable, and then the rest is market rate. Now you have me. I'm on the other side of development. For anybody who doesn't do this, I know there's a lot of real estate investors in here or planners, architects, et cetera. When my company's looking at deals, and Matt, you guys are probably real similar to this, we look at about 100 deals per month. Out of those 100 deals, I would say 92, 93%, we don't even take a shot at. They don't pencil. Out of the 7, we'll put an offer in. Let's say we get it under contract. That's a big if. A lot of the information that is then presented to us is different than what we originally saw. So most of those are passes. We might get 1 shot at a project per month. That doesn't mean we get the project. Then we got to get a project entitled. And anytime you add more regulation or a larger percentage of affordable housing, that squeezes the margin, right? Now, a lot of people think, well, yeah, but you're a developer, you're going to make money. Here's the challenge. You need the risk and the return profile to match. Or for us, we can't get investors to buy in, right? This is the biggest challenge with 100% affordable housing. If it costs us $10 million to build an apartment that will be worth $8 million on completion, no investor is putting their money into it. So you have to find a deal where it fits the city policy and also matches with the investor who would be willing to take the risk. And so for our city, we ended up landing on 10%. We went through a full financial analysis. Where they landed was you need the yield on cost. So if you're looking at a yield on cost with no debt, no appreciation, it needs to land somewhere around 7%. And when they were looking at the 20% inclusionary policy, that all of a sudden got dropped down to 5%. And so why would you build a brand new apartment at a 5 cap when you could buy one existing at a 5 cap, or the issue that we're struggling with today, interest rates are higher than that. So we're in a difficult time as far as building. It's really, really important that the inclusionary policy does not make it so no dollars will flow into your city. Now here's an interesting one. I learned this from skateboarding. I got a lot better at it after skateboarding. When I was skateboarding, I had influence, I had demand, and I was able to sell product. And so I would do these deals I was sponsored by GoPro, and I was sponsored by DC Shoes, if anybody knew who DC was, Rob Dyrdek. And I had my own signature line. So I had a signature shoe, I had my own clothing line, and I got a royalty off it. And so I was making good money. But as an athlete who knew that my window was short, I was definitely feeling this pain point that I was building these brands. And then when I was no longer relevant, I was going to move to the side. I wasn't going to make any money. And I wasn't going to experience all of the, let's say, value that I put into the brand after I left. So what that means, I wanted to start taking equity. And this is what I learned. There's 2 times to get paid. You either get paid on the front end or the back end. Front end is typically going to be fees, compensation, a base. Back end is going to be some type of equity. So as I was, actually I'm going to take a pause for 1 second. Do I see Frank right here? I have to give a major shout out to this man. When I was telling you guys that we were raising money for St. Archer, and I had no experience, my 2 partners had no experience, it was high risk, the only people that would buy into us were friends and family. These are people that knew who we were. There was one person outside of the friends and family that believed in us, that took a shot on us. Frank Foster runs a family office here in town in Santa Barbara. Frank Foster not only invested in our company, he came on as an advisory board member, mentored us through the 3.5 years of building our business. I owe this man a lot. I have not seen him in 10 years. Can everybody just please give him a round of applause? I'm very thankful for this man. I have entered the phase of my life where you start having kids and you start seeing the value of life, right? Any parents in the room, you know this. And then you start really appreciating the things or the people that have come into your life and blessed you. This is that man. So Frank, I'm so glad to see you. I can't wait to catch up with you. Thank you for being here. Okay, on the 2 times you get paid, on the front end and the back end. What I started doing with opportunity is either forfeiting a compensation so that I could take equity in the companies I was building, or I would try to do a split. Maybe if I had an offer to pay me, let's say, $100,000 a year to market a brand, I was going to try to reduce that to, let's say, 40, and then I wanted to participate in the upside of the growth. So maybe I would take 10% of all the growth beyond what they were currently making. That's how I started structuring deals. Cities can actually look at that same mechanism when they are looking at investing or getting investment into the community. What most cities focus on is revenue. How do we increase our revenue, right? It's expensive to run a city. And so with development, most cities go, I need these fees. I got a new developer in. Let's get fees here, fees here. We sometimes lose the opportunity of watching a massive amount of real estate increase in value, which increases our property tax, which becomes an increased revenue stream for our city. So one thing that I'm not taking credit for, our city manager takes all the credit for this. He has this viewpoint for our city. He is very mindful that we need buy-in from investors and from industries to come in and put dollars into our community. And if they can go buy a distressed asset for $2 million, and let's say build an apartment building that's going to be worth, $80 million, that is a massive spike in property tax revenue that comes to the city. If you can do that at scale, this is a great position to put us in. So does that mean you forfeit your fees on the front end? No. But I do think it's very important for cities to be mindful that you're not making it so difficult where you're not incentivizing industry to come in and finding the right pairing. So on the back end, is that me? I hope not. And so on the back end, we're not forfeiting a great amount of revenue that is consistently coming in for us. So I think that is a very healthy view that cities can take. And it feels like they're taking a page from the private markets. That has been very, very beneficial for me in my career. And I'm very excited that our city is doing that as well. Now, what does it look like for a city to make it so challenging that you disincentivize investors? We had a project in our town that really went through it. In the early 2000s, our city had a vision to create a mixed-use opportunity, and we wanted Caruso to build it. Everybody knows who Caruso is? So it was going to be the lakes. And what we presented to him was 160 to 190,000 square feet of net rentable space. And we wanted him to build a 1,000-space parking lot by our city hall. And we viewed it as a win-win. He would create a hub for our community. It would increase our property tax. It would be an economic build for us. It was a perfect win-win. Our city council at the time did not have that view. Our city council looked at him, and if I'm being brutally honest with you, they looked at a developer that was greedy. And they said, you don't need all of this. And so they started peeling back the ways that he could potentially make a return. His 190,000 square feet of net rentable got brought down to 47,000 feet. And Caruso, and here's a challenging one. Caruso knows what he's doing. Can we all agree with that? He knows how to build beautiful retail that thrives. Our city took the approach and said, your proof of concept is not going to be viable here. We're going to show you what to build. And so instead of his proof of concept, which is make the main attraction in the back and have all the retail leading up to it. So it forces people that are attempting to go to the main attraction to walk through all the retail. What that naturally does, I'm married. I know how my wife works. Ooh, let's go in here. Shop. Ooh, let's go in here. Then we finally make it to the destination, right? Target is amazing at this. I go into Target thinking we're spending $100. It's always 500 plus, right? We changed that. And so what our city did was decided that we wanted a huge pond in front. We wanted a huge park, some beautiful grass area, and the retail can kind of be spread all around. When Caruso did his underwriting, his project went down, and the analyst said that he would be capped at an 8% return. So when Caruso looked at that, he went, I don't have a project here. Now, what I believe our city council felt at that time was 8%. You're a billionaire. 8% is a great return. You have to understand the markets and you have to understand risk and return. Why would somebody take development risk for an 8% return when they can go get 5% in the bond market, right? It doesn't match or it doesn't create a risk premium. So Caruso walked. I'm not doing this. That set off the city. So one of our council members, who I have a great amount of respect for, was tasked in salvaging the deal. Caruso, how do we get you back to the table? And so Caruso said, I'll tell you what, if I can't make more than 8%, I want some guarantees here. So it became a land lease, number one. Number two, he sat behind a 12 pref. So 12 pref, for anybody who doesn't know, he had to make 12% first. Then we entered into our profit split. Caruso would take 20% of the NOI, the city would take 80. Do you guys think the analyst was right that that project did not produce more than an 8% return? Yes. So what does that mean for the city? We got 0. So now we've been in this project for 20 years and the city has never made a dollar off of it. And the retail, to be honest with you, has been struggling. It's been 20 years of a challenged asset. So what do we do now? Fast forward 20 years, and our city is now in the mindset of how do we grow our city? How do we keep more youth here? And because housing is so expensive, economy and great jobs is of high importance. So we got to figure out what to do. First thing we're doing, we have a very large redevelopment play happening in downtown. Our city hall is going through a redevelopment. We're doing a mixed-use community. I sit on the committee for that board. It's about a $300 million project. It sits right next to the Lakes project. So how do we unwind this thing? Knowing that we're somewhat in a box. What we decided to do, Caruso had an agreement, or he had an ability to buy the project in the original agreement for $2 billion if the city ever wanted to execute on it. Okay, Caruso, let's do this. Let's sell you the property for $2 million. We worked out a community benefit. So the community will get about $13 million in benefit, but he would have to build housing. And we tied the housing, we tied the PSA and the developing agreement to the entitlements. So he could not entitle the project and flip it. He had to build the apartment. We agree on that deal, we sign it, 2020 hits. Interest rates go through the roof. For all of us in commercial real estate, we know this. For anyone on the city side, commercial real estate and interest rates go hand in hand. Interest rates go up, our values drop. It makes it very difficult to build. So over the last 2 years, and what's really increasing the challenge of affordable housing is nothing's getting built. Most construction has been sidelined. So Caruso comes to the city and goes, guys, I need more time. I need an extension on my deal. Now it comes into the politics of the city council. Some of our council looked at that and said, why is he getting an extension? And in the extension, he offered to pay us for that extension. It would be $100,000. Now, for the untrained eye, this goes back to what I explained with skateboarding, some will look at that and go, this is a developer paying the city to make money, right? He's paying to get what he wants. In the real estate world, we know this happens on a daily basis. A lot of times we need extensions on our contracts. What it typically looks for us is we have our earnest money, or money that goes hard. That's the money that's at risk. For an extension, we usually have to increase that amount, but we don't add anything on top. Caruso was not adding to his earnest, he was putting money on top. I looked at that and went, that's actually a generous deal. I understand what's happening, or what's happening at the moment of our industry. Yes, let's do that. That was a difficult vote. That was not a 5-0 vote. We had to have a lot of conversation over that meeting. It ended up passing. So now we're in a position where we think as we build out the downtown, as he builds out his housing, that's going to be a catalyst for private investment to come into our downtown, which is going to create the end result of higher values, more property tax. It sounds like you guys have a project that's similar to this one. Does any of that ring a bell? So, forgive me for not being a Santa Barbara local. You guys have, is it the Paso Nuevo Mall? That's right. So you have a city-owned property, right? And the original plan was to build 233 market rate apartments. You had 80 deed-restricted homes. You had retail. You had public space. And it sounds like this one was controversial, right? The Nordstrom gets yanked from the project to keep it alive. You have a proposal for density that got slashed. And then you had the conversation around affordable housing. And what happened? The council rejected it, right? Now you can make the argument for why the council rejected it. Was that because it didn't pencil? Was that because there wasn't enough affordable housing? This right here, what we're dealing with in the city, what you guys are dealing with the Santa Barbara project, this is the California reality right now. You have a city with land. You have a developer with a plan, and yet there's no guarantee the project will ever see the light of day. Because policy, politics, and financing couldn't agree. They couldn't come together on this one. So if we want housing, we have to align the incentives, otherwise we get nothing. So the final points, and this is what I want to leave you with, and we could spend some time on Q&A if you guys want to. Housing gets solved through alignment, not ideology. Cities must understand development economics, and the private sector has to understand the public trust. I'm not saying there's one that works over the other. There has to be complete alignment. And long-term value always beats short-term optics. Now, I know this one's a challenge. I'm an elected official. The short-term wins are great for us to get elected. They really are. But if we are all doing this for the right reasons, which is to benefit the next generation, we can't be entirely focused on getting reelected. Sometimes we have to make decisions that actually compromise our seat if that will benefit the city long-term. I know that's difficult to do. I'm in the seat. But I think that actually is the correct viewpoint to have. Most importantly, our job isn't to choose between government and free market. Our job is to align them. When both sides row in the same direction, housing gets built, families get homes, and cities thrive. Thank you guys so much for allowing me to tell you about that. John, do you want to do any Q&A?
Of course.
Okay. All right. And I do want to ask this because I've been given the task of do not go off a PowerPoint. Do not make this boring. Was that okay? Was that boring? Were we all okay? Great. Thank you, guys. I'll just run this. If you want. Is this one on?
Not yet. Oh, it is. Okay.
Hand me this one.
So, do I get to ask the first question, really? Is that how it's going to go? Okay.
Your microphone. Thank you. So I believe when Caruso did a project here recently in Montecito, maybe there was a factor in there also of property tax deferment or totally negated, and so that would be a different type of a scenario. And then I believe our Paseo Nuevo has a very difficult process of being able to develop on it and have any value to it. So on those kinds of issues, you know, one you're giving away property tax, and the other one you're throwing in a piece of property, as I read it. I might be incorrect on that, but you might know more about that. So in the comparisons, can you give us a little idea of where the pluses and minuses are that could meet more there?
Yeah, very good question. So with everything, there's give and take, right? This is negotiation. And so I think the important thing, has anybody heard of Ezra Klein? Is that name? Yep. He has a book called Abundance. If you have not read Abundance, I would highly, highly recommend it. The point that he's making is we all need to focus on the desired outcome. What is the outcome that we are trying to realize? Right now, we are stuck in the regulation. What do we need here? And we're willing to put everything in on the regulation side, even if that means the outcome is never desired. So sometimes you have a project and it's unique, right? You might have to freeze the property taxes so that somebody can actually make money to come in. What you're wrestling with is what are the benefits in doing that? Is it job creation? Is it housing? Is there a portion where I get higher affordable housing by doing so? And so there's different levers that you can play. Actually, I'm going to give credit to LA on this one. It's insane for me saying this. LA created an initiative called ED1. So the mayor, Mayor Bass, has this initiative where she wants more affordable housing, right? And she went to the developers and said, why aren't you guys putting money here? People need housing. Solve the problem. And what we said was, we would love to solve a problem, but for us, we deal with making money. We have to have investors that, again, fit that risk-reward profile. Can you create incentives for us so it's actually worth the risk? And so what they did in LA, and I actually believe that they are going to take this framework. I think this framework has the potential of going nationwide. They removed CEQA from the conversation. So we get through our entitlements and permits now within about 6 to 9 months. For all my other market rate projects, that's 3.5 years. That's very beneficial for us. 2, a lot of the fees on the front end were scraped, so now it's cheaper to get in. And then in LA, they have the mansion tax, right? This is 5.5% on exit for multifamily. They removed that. So they were willing to take back some of the fees that they were actually able to capture so that they can make affordable housing on paper match market rate from a return profile. Once they did that, my company went, okay, we're game. And now we have 2 projects that we just closed on that we're building affordable housing, 100% affordable housing. We have a 3rd that we're closing in January and have 8 more projects to follow. So I actually think that's a good way that the city went, we need this. What do we have to do to get it? Now, they made sacrifices for that. It's not all going to look the same. I had a project in Ohio that was an abandoned mall. So it was about 62,000, how big? No, it was 62 acres. It was a big redevelopment play. The deal didn't pencil, but the city really wanted to take a distressed rundown property where windows were being broken and they weren't being fixed, weeds were coming out of the grass. That is a scary place for a city to be. And so a city wanted a mixed-use community. When we came to them, we said, we would love to build this, but if it's going to cost us $100 million to build it, and it's going to be worth 80 when we're finished, we can't do it. And so some of the things that they did for us, they froze the property tax, so that gave us a little bit more margin. We went through the exercise of a TIF bond. For everybody that's working in the city, are you guys familiar with TIF bonds? Some, yeah. Raise your hand if you are. Okay, this is coming to our state, and it I think is going to come in fast. We're looking at it in Thousand Oaks right now. A TIF bond is a very powerful tool to fill your capital stack, to bring the potential return up for us so that we're willing to take the risk. This is one that we're navigating through right now. We're attempting to get the county to create a TIF district for us, which will then give us the opportunity to have a portion of our cost fronted by future property tax that the county is going to give to us. There's different mechanisms, but really at the end of the day, what the city and the developer has to figure out is what are the city's needs, what are the developer's needs, and how do we ultimately meet at the middle so that we have a win-win, right? That's any negotiation. So different levers that you can play. The city at the end of the day is going to have to make the decision. Is this worth it for us? The developer's going to have to do the same thing. So ultimately, if we don't align, you don't have a project, right? Great question, though.
Quick question. Hi, Beth Collins from Brownstein. Really appreciate this topic of redevelopment, especially of these defunct malls that are often really complicated with all sorts of other layers of commercial and other agreements. A piece of that, when you say get the developer together and the city together, and in essence, figure out some sort of a joint venture in a way, to be able to get this asset redeveloped. The issue of the pro forma is, I'm curious, as far as examples that you have, that tends to be highly proprietary. The developers often don't want to share a pro forma. And yet, how do you build trust, or how do you bridge that gap and bring along the public, the decision makers, and everyone into, kind of break the stereotype. Developers are greedy, they're going to get gajillions of dollars versus the city's getting taken for a ride.
Yeah, that's a phenomenal question. Great job. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to say, when you are building out a pro forma, for anybody who doesn't know what a pro forma is, this is your potential financial return. This is all your financials. And in that, there's a lot of variables. So we're looking at forward-looking cap rates. We're looking at forward-looking rents. There's a lot of assumptions in that. And so the correct way to view it is you have a sliding scale. Secondarily, if you're dealing with investors, there's two parts of that dynamic. You have to have a projected return that you think you can get for your investors. The group that's operating it, they want to make money as well. So there's two chunks out of the agreement. Now, how do you get the developer to show you what's actually going on? That's a great question. My recommendation, have people in the city that come from this world. You want to have people in the city that understand a pro forma and understand what's current market rate that developers are going out to achieve. For me, look, I'm in the rare position where I do this for a living and I'm also on the city council. I think it would be very beneficial if every city elected someone who understands real estate. That's something that we had in the past. We didn't have that. And so when I got elected, the cool thing was I had a city council that looked at me and went, Mikey, this is your world. We need you to ask the questions. And so when a developer would come in to present a deal, I got to ask questions to try to figure out what their framework was. What are you guys building to? What's your guys' yield on cost that you're forecasting? They're going to give you a number. If you don't understand this world, that number's irrelevant. So for example, we had a project that somebody was trying to build, and I asked them the question, what's your untrended unlevered yield on cost? And he said 5%. I was like, 5%? How are you building at 5%? And he goes, exactly. We underwrote this when interest rates were at the floor. So we had about a 200 basis spread. Now we don't. So he was then asking the city for concessions to try to figure out how to build it. If you don't know what's going on in the local market, how are you able to create policy that pairs well? So the risk that we have here, this depends now on the resident, right? The citizen. You need the citizen to elect somebody who understands this world. I don't have an answer to this part. I would say historically, or maybe over the last 10 years, yeah, we do view developers as being greedy capitalists. We do. And so if they're viewed as greedy capitalists and you elect somebody to be in that position, a lot of the citizens go, that person is doing backdoor deals and getting rich off their position. I don't think that's accurate. I think there's always bad actors, but I don't think that's the play. I think if you're going to be elected for a position of creating policy, you better know about the things you're going to be voting on. And historically, we just haven't seen that yet. So maybe that's better messaging. Maybe you'll see that shift as we start going further into the housing issue. At the end of the day, if we need supply, who's going to build it? The developer. So hopefully we see a shift happen where there's a healthy view from the city, the citizen, and the developer. That's my hope. But I don't know yet. That's the challenge. Did you ask that question? What a great question. There it is. What a great question. Yeah.
I have a question. Actually, I'd like your help.
Okay.
I don't know how much you know about the Paseo Nuevo, but quick scenario, big, giant bank has this property that was foreclosed on. It's a 40-year lease. The city negotiated with them over a 2-year period, the city being city attorney, city administrator, and in a community where we have incredible civic engagement historically for a very long time, kind of came up suddenly, and I think a lot of people were freaked out, and the deal sort of went bad, and yeah, the council said we want 25% affordable, and it's like, oh shit, what do we do?
Yeah.
So, what would you do? What would you do to help solve that impasse, where you have the bank who says, F you, and you have the city that needs the housing, needs the redevelopment, wants to get the best deal possible?
Okay, that's a phenomenal question as well. Number one, you guys got to spend time with the council, right? Go get engaged with them, build relationships with them, and try to, for those that are experts in this field, spend time educating them. Like if this isn't their wheelhouse, if they were a chiropractor or a firefighter, I don't know the dynamic of experience that your city council has, spend time showing them how this industry works. Understand the banking side, right? If the bank had to take over a property, what's their position on it? Are they underwater? What do they need to make to get whole? Or how much discount are they willing to lose to offload the property? Once both sides, actually, there's actually more to this. Think about any time we have a conflict with somebody, right? Somebody has a different political view. Let's say you're on the right and you're on the left, and you guys are arguing over, let's take the hottest topic, immigration, right? If you guys don't know each other, it's very easy for you guys to just argue at one another. The second you guys take a moment to actually get to know one another, all of a sudden you start caring about them. Their idea isn't necessarily evil, it's a difference of opinion. If we can get the bank and the council together, go have them have lunch together. Have them do the actual relationship build that's needed. You will actually end up with a better outcome. But usually, and here's the dynamic, we have the Brown Act, we have a situation where all parties can't get together. And so usually what happens is the city manager or the city attorney or someone else from the city is actually the one negotiating with the bank. And then that's brought to the city council in closed session. If they can, take one or two of the council members into that conversation, and I would always recommend starting with get to know the people, right? Not just the deal in front of you, get to know them. That has always resulted in a better outcome for myself. Get to know somebody, then it makes it very hard to hate someone when you know them, right? So I think that would be the best advice.
So Mikey, I'm gonna make it a little more challenging for you.
Here we go.
What if they don't want to get to know the private sector? What if they're not open to having those conversations because there's a different political agenda? What if they're not open to having those conversations? I'm not saying that's the situation in Santa Barbara, but theoretically, if that was the situation, is it public comment? In my mind, it comes down to the education and just making sure everyone needs to be in the same room and be educated on what's really happening, like you spoke about today.
Yeah, here's going to be a controversial take, man. If your council members aren't willing to get to know people and actually create solutions, you got to vote them out. They should not be there. That's the truth. They should not be in that position because they're not in a position to not solve problems. They were elected to solve problems. And I don't think you solve problems in that regard. So here's the thing to note. When politicians fear that their seat is going to be taken, they move, right? So get people involved. The more scale you have, the more you can move them. Politicians can be moved. You just have to get involved. Public hearing is good. It goes beyond public hearing, though. You guys got to go call them. You got to rally. You got to have communication. If they feel like something has to be done or their seat is at risk, and this applies for myself as well, you will watch them move. So that's what I'd recommend.
We have one more, Laura? Okay, one more.
No, I just wanted to ask, I mean, you posited the notion, I guess, that we're in a housing crisis because elected officials don't seem to understand real estate or development.
Well, it's beyond that, but yeah, go ahead.
Well, so I'm just wondering, yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to get to. What is beyond that? Like, what changed? There's a crisis now, which sort of presumes there wasn't a crisis sometime in the past. So what changed? Is it that elected officials in the past understood real estate and development better, or is there something else at play?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Phenomenal questions all around. Okay, so our cities have to operate within the state. And a lot of the stuff that we do is in a pretty tight box because of state regulation. If you ask me how we got here, this is what I would say. Coming out of the financial crisis, or maybe leading up to the financial crisis, we were building. If you look at our numbers are really good. Post-financial crisis, they fell off a cliff. And so what we ended up seeing is when areas start getting more built out and they start becoming more affluent, you definitely have a larger population that says, we're done with building. It's full. And so what we saw over the last 20 years really is a lot of cities that elected city councils to say no to all development. There was a wall. Something really big happened around 2017 as we started seeing a lot of housing laws change at the state level. Now, they didn't necessarily deregulate. So I think if you're looking at the state level, there's a lot that needs to change in order to actually get projects that pencil here in comparison to some of the other states. So if you're looking at what's happening right now, housing in California, we are not seeing the same type of correction that Phoenix is seeing, that Austin is seeing, that Florida is seeing. The markets where you can get projects entitled and permitted in 6 months and build, they are correcting right now. They're correcting hard because there's been an oversupply. In California, our barrier to entry is so high that, in my perspective, our regulation stops the natural market from going through the natural correction. So our rents are still high. Cap rates may have softened, but the rent growth has been so high that values haven't really moved that much. So I think at the first onset, the state needs to change a lot of regulation. One thing the state did do, and your city's feeling this, mine is as well, they created something called the builder's remedy, right? So when the state would say, Thousand Oaks, you have to add 6,000 units to your city. Santa Barbara, you have to add 8,000 units to your city. If you don't, developers can now tap into the builder's remedy. The builder's remedy allows developers to build way beyond your local policy. And so what that did for cities is they went, okay, crap, this real estate's getting built. We're either going to try to control what we can of that, or the state's going to control it. That did change a lot, but the challenge is, and I think, I don't have an answer for this one yet, the main focus right now is multifamily. The focus is not single family. And so now as you add to the dynamic between the state and the city, and now the developer, it's very hard to get single family to pencil right now. And when you build single family, you got to build it to sell it, so it's a flip, right? It's much more volatile. When you're building multifamily, you can build it and you can hold it. The longer amount of time you have in real estate, you remove a lot of those risk factors. And so what I think is going to happen, you're going to see a lot more multifamily built here because we have to. It's now our job to figure out how to do it. I don't see a solution yet on the single family side. And so if you're asking me what our challenge is going to be 10 years from now, we're going to be off-weighted on ownership versus rent. And so that'll probably be the next discussion, and hopefully you guys find maybe a pro skateboarder skating now that comes on a similar path and speaks to you guys a decade from now. I'm not sure. But for all that, the things that I think we can control is where do we put the units in a place that doesn't disrupt the community? And for the people that have found Santa Barbara special or Thousand Oaks special, how do we still maintain the thing that kept everyone here? But if our state doesn't peel back the regulation, it's my perspective that we do not exit the housing crisis. Now going into my private view of investing, we invest in the state for that reason. We believe that the state is so difficult and the regulation is so high that they keep competition out. And then when you have a city that's anti-development, all that does is keep the builders away. And so we don't go through the correction, and what that ends up doing is it keeps cap rates compressed and it keeps rents up, it keeps occupancy high. So that's the interesting part. If you're asking me what I like about investing here, it would be the regulation. If you're asking me on now the city council side, how do we solve the housing crisis? You got to get rid of the regulation. So I'm in the middle of a very challenging issue, right? Thank you, guys. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Mikey. Go ahead, Craig.
Yeah. You on?
Hello, hello. All right. Can we get one more round of applause for Mikey Taylor, please? I think that was really great. He's going to be hanging out for a while, so I encourage you guys to talk to him. Pretty fascinating guy. The next part of our program, we get to have another mayor come up. How great is this? Multiple mayors in one morning. I see Randy over there. We're going to present our Michael Towbes Award, so I'm going to hand it over to Craig to start that.
Towbes. Oh, yeah.
I'm excited to jump into this. Before we do that, I would like to share a quick video from one of our sponsors. So we're going to actually pivot to that, and we'll come back and start to do the Michael Towbes Award. All right, audible on that. You got me back. So we've quickly pivoted to the Michael Towbes Award. It's my honor to kick this segment off, the Michael Towbes Excellence in Workforce Housing Award. I had the honor of working alongside Mike Towbes, we called him MT, for over 10 years. In that time, we completed some of our region's largest housing projects. Mike is a legacy, and I'm forever grateful for the knowledge and experience he taught me. Mike Towbes passed in 2017, and at that time, I served as the Coastal Housing Coalition's board president. In honor of MT, I suggested this award be born in his name. I'm pleased to see years later it continues on and highlights so many noteworthy recipients. I welcome back John to introduce the 2025 Michael Towbes Excellent in Workforce Housing Award.
Thank you, Craig. So kind of in line with what Mikey was talking about, this year we did not have a unanimous board decision, but we did get a board decision. And we're really proud of our work in the adaptive reuse policy. Not to bore you with all the details, because my guess is more than 80% of you know more about it than I do. But this was what we really feel is a collaborative effort by quite a few people. So you first and foremost have the city of Santa Barbara with their staff. Again, I'm going to give another shout out to Mac with Brownstein. There was a lot of input that was, and then the private sector. So there was a lot of input that was given. And as a group, the Coastal Housing Coalition truly believes that what the city did in this policy was really highlight the need that we all need to work together. We need to have input, we need to have discussion, and the outcome of it is one of which that will actually potentially get units in our downtown core. So in short, for you guys, we have a downtown that some would say is thriving. I don't know if anyone, I don't personally agree with that, but we have a downtown that has an opportunity, and the adaptive reuse needs to be a part of that, because we have buildings and people walk by. Why can't we build housing there? Why can't we put, a bunch of units there? This policy, in our eyes, was a great opportunity for the city, the private sector, and everyone work together. So with that, I'd like to bring up our current mayor, Randy Rouse, to accept the award on behalf of the city of Santa Barbara and the adaptive reuse policy.
All right, thank you very much. If you're wondering about this, Christmas came early. I gave myself a new knee a couple of weeks ago, so you forgive my hobbling around. So it is quite an honor, and Michael Towbes was a friend, and I really wish I had him around for an ear to lean on, because he would understand some of the things we're going through right now and the challenges we have in building these units that can be either affordable, rezoned, the things that we need to do to make this stuff happen. In Santa Barbara, the city, we talk a lot about housing, but it reminds me of the Mark Twain thing about the weather. Everybody talks about it, but nobody does anything about it. So what we did recently was we adopted our adaptive reuse plan for the downtown. And when we did that, we recognized a couple of things. Number one, we only have about 5% of residential in the downtown, which normally you would have in an urban area anywhere from 20 to 25% of residential mixed in with the commercial. So we're trying to remedy that. And number two is, as you move forward, you have to recognize market realities. And one of the market realities was, I'm looking at Brian Cornell when I'm saying this, one of the market realities was the inclusionary requirements and some of the things that we do that really kind of crush the incentive to do it. It's hard to make these things pencil. For all you guys that are developers out there, you know what I'm talking about. And of course, as we all know, we're enmeshed in a really dramatic discussion right now about the fate of Paseo Nuevo. At some point in time, we're going to get to yes on a project. I really sincerely hope, and I do believe we will. And that's going to bring a lot of units downtown that we don't have now. It's going to more than double what we have currently, which is a great start. The Sotaro project that Peter Lewis built was great. It was a start. UCSB's taking that over. But it's going to be a trend as we go forward with adaptive reuse, doing these projects that eventually will help us hopefully bring or moderate the cost of housing and living in our downtown. So with that, the city very much appreciates the recognition, and we really appreciate being named in the same breath as Michael Towbes. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Randy.
Thanks, Fred. Appreciate it.
All right, congratulations. I'm about to let you on a 15-minute break, but before we do, I would like to run a video from the Santa Barbara Association of Realtors. It's a neat, quick 2-minute video on them. So please enjoy that, and then when that's concluded, you'll grab a cup of coffee, do some networking, and we'll join back here at 10:30.
Across America, communities are coming together to talk about one thing that changes everything: opportunity. Welcome to the Unlocking Opportunity Tour, where conversations about housing, home ownership, and building generational wealth are opening doors for families nationwide. Because owning a home doesn't just give you a place to live, it gives you a foundation to build a future, a stronger community, a legacy for generations to come. At each stop, we bring together realtors, community leaders, housing experts, financial professionals, and elected officials.
So you did not only just rent that home, you just paid for that home twice.
So imagine owning a home in 2020, moving up to 2025.
So somebody who stayed a renter throughout that time, the rent went up, they paid more in rent, but they didn't get that 50% appreciation at the time from owning, right? Like missed out on that.
All sharing insight on how to buy, keep, and thrive in your own home. Through engaging discussions and hands-on workshops, we dive into financial planning, budgeting, and literacy, empowering people with the knowledge to make smart decisions and secure lasting stability. Behind this national movement is the American Property Owners Alliance, a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization based in Washington, D.C. The Alliance is committed to expanding opportunities for homeownership and protecting property rights in communities everywhere. In 2025, we've traveled from Little Rock to Memphis, from Chicago to Akron and Houston, sparking change and inspiring action. And in 2026, the tour is expanding even further, reaching more cities, more neighborhoods, and more people ready to unlock their potential. Together, we're not just talking about homeownership, we're making it real. We're sharing information, answering questions, and building confidence to help every family reach for the American dream. The Unlocking Opportunity Tour, where knowledge meets empowerment and dreams meet reality.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you back here, 10:30. Thank you.